All right, good morning, children. We are continuing the chapter 5. We are on page 85, the sources of human capital. Yesterday, we done sources for education, then investment in health, on the job training. Today, we will take up migration, page 85. Now, people migrate in search of jobs that fetch them higher salaries than what they may get in their native places. Unemployment is the reason for the rural urban migration in India. Technically, qualified persons like engineers and doctors migrate to other countries because of higher salaries that they may get in such countries, and migration in both these cases involves cost of transport, higher cost of living in the migrated places, and the psychic cost of living in a strange socio-cultural setup. The enhanced earnings in the new place outweighs the cost of migration. Hence, the expenditure on migration is also a source of human capital formation. What is being told over here is, why do people migrate from one place to another? You see people from the rural, they come to the urban because of earn a livelihood, more money. People from one country migrate to the other. Why do they do that? In search of higher salaries than what they get at their own native places. Many qualified people, doctors, engineers, they all migrate to the other countries. Why do they migrate? Because of higher salaries, and they have to incur certain cost for going from one place to the other. So these involve cost of transport, that is buying a ticket from one place to the other place, higher cost of living from one country to the other. The standards of living are always different. So there would be a higher cost of living in the migrated place, and also psychic cost of living in a strange socio-cultural setup. What is the psychic cost of living? Psychic cost of living is the cost incurred by a person for getting himself adjusted to the new environment in which he has gone in. Okay, so these are the costs which a person has to normally bear when he wants to migrate to another person. But they are still willing to go from one place to another. Why? Because the earnings, the enhanced earnings in the new place outweighs means it is much more than what they are getting in the place where they are. So they are willing to undertake this expenditure so that they can go to the next place, because the earnings in that place would more than cover up the cost of going to these new places. That is what the last sentence says. The enhanced earnings in the new place outweighs the cost of migration. It is worthwhile. In other words, it is worthwhile for them to go from one place to the other, even though they have to bear certain cost. So expenditure on migration is also taken as a source of human capital formation. Next is, people spend to acquire information relating to the labor market and other markets like education and health. For example, people want to know the level of salaries associated with the various types of jobs, whether the educational institutions provide the right type of employable skills and at what cost. This information is necessary to make decisions regarding investments in human capital as well as for efficient utilization of the acquired human capital stock. Expenditure incurred for acquiring information relating to the labor market and other market is also a source of human capital formation. So, money spent on gathering or acquiring information. Like people want to know what would be their salary for a particular type of job in another place. Whether the educational institutions, now normally children when they finish their schooling, they look for good colleges out of their hometown, don't they? So what do they spend money on? Getting the money, they spend money on getting a prospectus of the college that involves money. Then some of them may physically go to the place to inquire about higher education, the facilities and the norms and etc. etc. All that which goes to this. So they are in the process of acquiring, getting information. Why they are getting information? So that they can better themselves either in a new job or what would be the job if I go abroad, what would be my earning capacity. If I have to go for a higher education, what would be the benefits, what would be the cost. So you need to gather information. So the money spent on gathering information is also a source of human capital formation. Then we have the concept of physical capital is the base for conceptualizing human capital. There are some similarities between the two forms of capital and there are some striking dissimilarities as well. You can read box 5.1 at your leisure. We now come to human capital and economic growth. Who contributes more to the national income? A worker in the factory or a software professional? I had asked this question yesterday also. Who contributes more? Educated person or an uneducated person? And what did we come to the conclusion? Normally, an educated person, because of his abilities, is contributing more. So in this case, obviously a software professional would contribute much more than a worker in a factory. We know that the labor skill of an educated person is more than that of an uneducated person, and that the former means the educated person generates more income than the latter, that is of the unskilled person. Economic growth means the increase in the real national income of a country. Naturally, the contribution of an educated person to the economic growth is more than an illiterate person. If a healthy person could provide uninterrupted labor supply for a longer period of time, then health is also an important factor for the economic growth. Thus, both education and health, along with many other factors like we read about on-the-job training, job market information, and migration, increase in individuals' income generating capacity. So we again revise what we read. We invest in education. We invest in health because we know for certain a healthy person can provide uninterrupted work, labor, or his contribution will be uninterrupted. But if he is a sick person, then because of his sickness, he may stay away from work. His contribution would be interrupted from time to time, and his contribution would be less. Then we also read of on-the-job training. People realize that when a person is trained in a certain field, that person will be able to contribute more because there is always an increase in technology, new technology, new knowledge which is coming. A person must upgrade himself so that he is able to adapt and adopt himself to these changes. So people prefer to send their people for on-the-job training. That on-the-job training could be by a person who is already being trained, and he in turn trains the people at his workplace, or the company or the place where you are working would take a group of people and send them for training to a place which is specializing in that particular training. The cost for this training is borne by them, and when the persons come back, they are expected to implement those new ideas, new technologies, new knowledge which they have gained, so that they are able to contribute more towards the growth of the economy. Then we also learned about migration. People are willing to spend money to go from one place to another. Doctors, engineers, they are willing to migrate from their country to the other country in search of higher salaries. People from the rural areas, they migrate from the villages to the city in search of jobs. So that also involves cost. So the cost spent on migration is also considered as one of the sources for human capital formation. Then people gather information. When you gather information, there is again a cost factor involved. Students, when they are finishing from a certain grade, they are looking forward for higher education. They are searching for information, getting prospectus from different colleges, information from different cities. All this involves cost. You may physically have to go to the place to verify. All that involves cost. So gathering information whether for education or whether for higher salaries or higher job facilities involves cost. That cost is also a source for human capital formation. So all these costs are worth it. Why are they worth it? Because the end result outweighs means the benefits of all these is more than what the expenses incurred on obtaining these sources are. So people are willing to undertake all of these. Now, empirical evidence to prove that increase in human capital causes economic growth is rather nebulous. Empirical evidence proves that increase in the human capital causes an economic growth is rather nebulous, not rather true. This may be because of measurement problems. For example, education measured in terms of years of schooling, teacher-pupil ratio, and enrollment rates may not reflect the quality of education. Health services measured in monetary terms, life expectancy, and mortality rates may not reflect the true health status of the people in a country. Using the indicators mentioned above, an analysis of improvement in education and health sectors and growth in the real per capita income in both the developing and the developed countries shows that there is a convergence in the measures of human capital, but no sign of convergence of per capita real income. In other words, human capital growth in developing countries has been faster, but the growth of per capita real income has not been that fast. What does this paragraph wishes us to understand? That all these are good for human capital formation. But sometimes the picture or what our understanding makes us believe that it is always better when we migrate to another place, or that when we are educated the contribution is more. All this is true, but sometimes in practical this may not come across the way it is supposed to come across. Now suppose there is a growth in the economy. Now, when there is a growth in the economy, that benefit should come to an individual. There should be a growth in the individual. Growth in the economy takes place much more than what the growth in the individual normally would take place. This is normally seen. Okay, because again, the growth for an economy takes place because of the contribution of many, but when it is narrowed down to an individual, sometimes it may not be that beneficial as it would have been on paper. This is what he says. The human capital growth in developing countries has been faster, but the growth of per capita real income has not been that fast. And there are reasons to believe that the causality between human capital and the economic growth flows in either directions. That is, higher income causes building of high level of human capital and vice versa. That is, high level of human capital causes the growth of income. India recognized the importance of human capital in the economic growth long ago. So we knew, India recognized that if we have to have economic growth, we must develop our human resources, because we have a lot of human resources in the country. These human resources have to be developed. That's how we get the term of human development. The seventh five-year plan says human resources development, here you will read it as human capital, has necessarily to be assigned a key role in any development strategy, particularly in a country with a large population. It means here that if we have to have a development in the economy, human resource development is very, very necessary. Particularly for that country where there is a high or a very large population. Now, India being a largely populated, we have a lot of resources, lot of human beings are there. But are we developing our resources? Are we converting our resources into capital formation, human development? Okay. Trained and educated on sound lines, a large population can itself become an asset in accelerating economic growth and in ensuring a social change in the desired directions. Now, children, normally we hear of the disadvantage. Oh, we are a very highly population, and because of the highly population, there are all those problems which are occurring. But think of it like this: if we have trained and educated people, okay, this large population can itself become an asset for us. It can become a plus point for us, because then we will have a lot of human capital formation. All we have to do is utilize these resources, human resources, train them, develop them, and this would then become an asset for accelerating, that is increasing the economic growth, and then he can bring about a social change in the direction we desire. It is difficult to establish a relation of cause and effect from the growth of human capital, that is education and health, to economic growth. But we can see that if you see in table 5.1, these sectors have grown simultaneously. Growth in each sector probably has reinforced the growth of every other sector. Two independent reports on the Indian economy in recent times have identified that India would grow faster due to its strength in human capital formation. The Deutsche Bank, a German bank, in its report on global growth centers, which was published on 1st of July 2005, identified that India will emerge as one among the 4 major growth centers in the world by the year 2020. And it further states, our empirical investigation supports the view that human capital is the most important factor of production in today's economies. Increases in human capital are crucial to achieving increases in the GDP. With reference to India, it states, between 2005 and 2020, we expect a 40% rise in the average years of education in India to just about 7 years. So you see, the Deutsche Bank, which is a German bank, reported that India would be one of the major, among the 4 major growth centers. Why? Because of the strength of the human capital formation which we have in our country. Based on that, it says because of that, India could be one of the, among the 4 major growth centers by the year 2020. The World Bank, in its recent report, India and the Knowledge Economy, Leveraging Strengths and Opportunities, states that India should make a transition to the knowledge economy, and if it uses its knowledge as much as Iceland does, it is judged that Iceland uses its knowledge economy very effectively, then the per capita income of India will increase from a little over $1,000 US dollars in 2002 to, let's say, 3,000 US dollars by the year 2020. It further states that the Indian economy has all the key ingredients for making this transition, for making this change, such as a critical mass of skilled workers, a well-functioning democracy, and a diversified science and technology infrastructure. Thus, the 2 reports point out the fact that further human capital formation in India will move its economy to a higher trajectory. Trajectory is a push, higher growth rate. So you see, because of the human capital formation, we are stated to be able to grow to be one of the major 4 growth centers in the world, only because of our human capital formation. Children, we will stop till here, till this paragraph, and we will continue the same from here tomorrow.